It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is David Harrison of the Locked On Commanders podcast, here to tell you that U.S. Cellular knows how important your kids' relationship with technology is, and they've made it their mission to help them establish good digital habits early on. That's why they've partnered with Screen Sanity, a nonprofit dedicated to helping kids navigate the digital landscape. And for a smarter start to the school year, U.S. Cellular is also offering a free basic phone on new eligible lines, providing an alternative to a smartphone for children. Start smarter with U.S. Cellular. Visit uscellular.com/built for us to find out more. Terms apply.
Can you feel it, everybody? We're getting very, very close to money season in the fantasy hockey realm. That's why on Friday's episode, we're breaking down all the top news from around the NHL. Auston Matthews, Alexis Lafreniere, and of course, Evan Bouchard. What do all of these moves mean for your fantasy team? Tune in, tap in, and let's get this money.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Steele, the excitement is real, and I hope the fantasy fanatics out there are feeling it as well, because we're getting very close to the puck drop on the upcoming season, baby. And I'm getting hyped. Thank you for joining us for the Friday episode of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, and thank you for making us your first listen every single day. The offseason is drawing to a near, and you can tell because contracts are dropping, bodies are moving, and we're timing ourselves nicely to get this money. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. The episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official partner and sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started today. Steele, we've been waiting for the Auston Matthews news. You and I don't get a ton of opportunity to come on here and just be straight up Leafs fans. We're going to talk about it from the Leafs fans' perspective, but we got to talk fantasy as well for Auston Matthews in this Toronto Maple Leafs club, because I went on a show earlier today and I'm now drinking your Kool-Aid. I think this is their division to lose, and I'll talk about it in a few minutes. Alexis Lafreniere also getting his mini 2-year contract. Evan Bouchard also getting a 2-year contract. There's some interesting angles to be had here. I want to immediately turn it over to you. We're going to talk about Matthews first. Then I think Lafreniere makes sense next, and we'll wrap it up with Bouchard. But let's save some time for this Toronto Maple Leafs situation. For obvious reasons, I know you have a lot to say today. It's usually me flapping off at the top of the episode. I'm turning it over to you. Hit me with your take on what's going on here. There's also a lot of Twitter warriors going on, so I want to talk about them as well.
Absolutely love the news of Auston Matthews remaining in Toronto. 4 years, $53 million, 13.25 AAV. Look, he absolutely deserves this contract. He 85 points in 73 games this past year. We knew it was a little bit of a down season from the 105 he put up the year prior to that. But Auston Matthews is one of the best goal scorers in the NHL right now. One of the best two-way forwards and players in the game as well. You mentioned this the other day. You don't see a lot of skilled players putting their body on the line, especially a player of Matthews' caliber. 92 blocks, 78 hits, 327 shots, bringing that into the fantasy side of things. He's one of the top fantasy players, one of the top players in the NHL right now. And again, going back to his goal-scoring ability, 5 out of 7 years. He's only been in the NHL 7 years, which time is just flying by right now. But 5 out of 7 years, he's scored 40 goals. And the only reason he didn't score 40 the other 2 seasons was because he played less than 68 games and still put up 34 and 37 goals those 2 seasons. So by far, absolutely deserves this contract. People might say it's a little bit high, overpaid. He becomes the highest paid player in the NHL, but he deserves the contract for all of those reasons I just listed off. Plus, the cap is going to continue to go up by $1.5 million over the next few years as well. It's going to go up every single season. It could go up more. So by the time, year 2 or year 3 comes around, this contract is going to look very, very good. And especially, for those Locked On Sens guys, Mark Method as well, they can talk and tweet all the SHIT they want to. But at the end of the day, the Toronto Maple Leafs have the better players. They have the better team. And for sure, all of us Leaf fans, we can look up in our arena, in our stadium, and see a couple of championship banners up there. I don't care. It's all the way back till 1967. We've been in the playoffs the last 6 years. They haven't. Their team is finally just getting good because they had to implode their team back in 2017 after getting dusted in the Eastern Conference Finals. So they can talk, they can yap all the time they want to. But we'll keep all those receipts out and we'll use them at the end of the season.
Oh, we're keeping receipts, and they do have some really good players. We're not taking away anything from the stars that are Timmy Stutz, Brady Tkachuk.
Yeah, they do.
They have some studs. So I'm here for the conversation of maybe who has a better roster. But I think at the end of the day, and whoever wants to say whatever from whatever fan base or from whatever armchair they're in, which we are also in, we are not athletes. We are not coaches, but we can look at these things with real angles. Auston Matthews has a quote unquote down year last year. He still pops 40 and the rest of his game is starting to round into form. I understand that people say, I'm just trying to play devil's advocate here because I'm loving every single thing you're saying. Yeah, the banners are old. Yeah, it's been a while since they've won. Yeah, they only got dusted in the second round after finally punching through in the first round. But when I look at this division subjectively, and I'm being straight up, I'm talking about putting my money on where I think the best team got the best chance to win. In my opinion, it's the Toronto Maple Leafs division to lose now. And I know I was a little apprehensive about saying this because I do think it's a boom or bust situation. Bringing in guys like Klingberg, bringing in guys like Reeves, it could really pan out. It really could. But it could maybe blow up in Treliving's face just a little bit also because we don't know what Samsonov can do. But this move with Matthews is totally 100% what the team needed. And what I'll say, if I'm being fully, honestly, unbiased, it's a little bit disappointing that we can't get the man under longer term. If I'm being a true fan and I'm being a true reporter here, you're seeing longer term deals for key pieces of squads across the NHL doing 7 or 8 years. So to see the 4 years, obviously that's a bit disheartening, but I'll leave it at this for you, Steele. 5-on-5 goals in the last 3 seasons. David Pastrnak, 70. Connor McDavid, 73. Pretty good players. How about 93 for our boy Auston Matthews? So maybe it's time to wake up, read the stats, and put a little bit of respect on 34's name, because I also hear the haters, Steele. I hear them, and they're going to say he's been banged up. He can't take too many hits. He's a bit made of glass. At this day in the NHL, show me a guy his age that hasn't been banged up with injury. Even the most consistent guys seem to miss a little bit of time this year. That's just how it is in this day and age. But Auston Matthews signing 4-year, $13.25 million AAV. The AAV is a win for the team as well, Steele.
It is a win for the team. And like I said, the cap's going to continue to go up every single season.
It's going to look better, you're right.
Obviously, with this season or with this contract, it solidifies that William Nylander is on the way out. Like he's got 1 year left on his contract. They're not going to be able to pay him because, again, in 2 years, 2 years, 2025-26 season, JT is going to need another contract. Mitch Marner is going to need another contract. So there's a few other elements that go into play here. And again, William Nylander to me is that odd man out, and you could get a ton of return for a guy of his caliber and his status as well.
Really interesting, though, that he does come out in an interview with Jeff Merrick and Elliot Friedman literally like the day before, saying he's not worried, saying that he wants to be a part of this team. But you know what he's saying? He's saying all the right things if you want to maintain your stock as a star player, because we know that there's been a little bit of off-ice complaints about William Nylander's contract demands in the past. So if you're trying to really maximize your client's potential, and I'm talking about him taking maybe a little bit of coaching here from his representation group, that's what I'm saying, because I agree with you fully about how are they going to fit the money in? The contract juggling by Kyle Dubas, even though we love what he did near the end of his tenure, wasn't always the greatest. So now Brad Treliving is going to have to come in and deal with that. But if you're talking about on ice, Steele, because I love how a lot of people, when they come at us, when they come at the Leafs, they love to bring up a whole bunch of BS that has nothing to do with what the team can do on the ice. Contracts, past leadership, bad records in the playoffs. Let's talk about the team on the ice this year, because when you look at that Atlantic Division, and I've been very vocal, and so have you, Detroit Red Wings got better. Ottawa Senators have, maybe, with overall quality of their core have gotten better. And the Buffalo Sabres, we love as a team on the uptick. So this isn't exactly a walk in the park. It's just a testament to what the Maple Leafs have up front. They've really tightened up on the back end, and Samsonov had a good year. He just really stumbled in the playoffs. I think we can leave it at that for now for the Toronto Maple Leafs deal, because we got to talk about your boy Alexis. We got to talk about Evan Bouchard, and I think we'll drop a couple more nuggets about our listener league very quickly. We got to pump that out some more right after the break. I know you got me covered on that front, but shout out to you calling out some of these mans out here who are just steady, got other teams in their mouthpiece, and I implore them to focus on their own squad and take a look on the inside, baby, because talking about not wanting to play in Toronto when it's coming from some of these franchises that are straight bucket, I'm not here for it, and we're not having it. But what we are having is today's episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. Football season is about to kick off, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to win all season long. Steele, I'm loving this. Right now, when you bet on a Super Bowl winner, you get bonus bets back every time they win in the regular season. Pick a team, any team to win the Super Bowl, and you get bonus bucks in your pocket for every regular season victory. That's cash you can be using to bet on the spreads, player props, over-unders, and a whole lot more. So head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon today to get started earning bonus bets with America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon.
This is David Harrison of the Locked On Commanders podcast to draw your attention to the taste that's going down in the bread aisle. All thanks to Dave's Killer Bread, bread amplified. Anyone can bake bread, few can rock it, and Dave's Killer Bread is the champion of killer taste, killer texture, and is for those who want to rise above the boring. Organic and healthy doesn't have to mean boring when it's made with the highest quality organic and non-GMO ingredients, packed with whole grains, fiber, and protein. 21 whole grains and seeds bread has a subtle sweetness and a seed-coated crust, while Good Seed products are the boldest and sweetest of all. Dave's Killer Bread was built on the belief that second chances can change lives, because after spending 15 years in prison, not only did the guy with the guitar you see on every loaf turn his own life around, he's helping others to do the same. By hiring the best people for the job, regardless of their background, he's ensuring your mornings no longer taste like cardboard, your taste buds don't have to feel sedated, and your sandwiches can become superstars. Visit daveskillerbread.com to learn more and look for Dave's Killer Bread in the bread aisle of your favorite grocery store.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. We are a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your favorite team from all 4 major sports leagues, including the NCAA, your team every single day. And like Flip said, continue to DM us on our Twitter account, LO_fantasy NHL. We'll follow you back so you can get through to the DMs.
Yep.
But yeah, privately message us with your information, full name, email, and which league you want to be a part of, the casual or competitive. The difference between the two is just the entry fee that you participate in, whether it's $20 in the casual and $50 in the competitive league. But make sure you're DMing us on Twitter, LO_fantasy NHL. We already have 22 people that are on our list right now. It's continuing to go up every single day. It's improving. We're getting more participants every single day. We're waiting for a few more to message us back from last year's first year edition of the Fantasy Hockey Listener League. But again, just DM us if you want to participate with your information. We'll put you down on the list.
And
Alexis Lafreniere.
Don't forget those, Spiel. To be included, make sure you subscribe, you like, and you drop us that 5-star review, because only the people that are subscribed and have dropped us a review are going to be entered in. Make sure you follow all those details, and you are in the league, baby, and you will be going toe-to-toe with Steele and I. I'd be more worried about Steele because he knows what he's doing. I'm just over here kind of cracking tins and having fun. No, I'm kidding. Steele, take us away with your boy Alexis here, because we talked about him recently, so I think we can keep this one relatively short.
Yes, we can. Yes, we did talk about him just a few weeks ago. Alexis Lafreniere finally getting his contract situated with the New York Rangers. 2 years, $2.325 million AAV. So again, that's relatively what we thought it would be. I thought, again, would be close to what we saw Alex Newhook. He signed for 2.9 for 3 years. So he gets the 2-year deal. It goes down in AAV. So we're relatively close to what they ended up agreeing on. 2 years, $2.325 million for Alexis Lafreniere. 16 goals, 39 points last year. just over 15 minutes of average ice time for the New York Rangers. There is a lot to like, though, with the peripheral stats. 141 hits, 135 shots. For me, they need to be playing this player a lot more. They need to play Alexis Lafreniere more. He'll be 22 years old in October. He's the first overall pick back in 2020. And I understand that he's coming into a situation where you've got Chris Kreider as left wing, Artemi Panarin on left wing. And I understand that he plays the left wing side, but they need to be playing him more. Again, drafted first overall with the first pick in 2020 draft. He dominated the QMJHL for 3 straight seasons. That's why he was the number 1 overall pick in 2020, because the pure talent that he brings, the stick handling ability, the skating, the edge work, the awareness of his teammates around him. That's why he went first overall. That's why New York Rangers drafted him, but they're not utilizing him properly. I've said this over and over again. He needs to be playing more. He needs more time on the power play. And again, he's stuck behind Artemi Panarin and Chris Kreider, rightfully so, because they're elite players, they're elite forwards, but he needs to get some more playing time to get his confidence up.
You know how closely I watch time on ice connected to fantasy value, and the fact that it was going up is a good sign for me. And I know it was only from 14 minutes up to a little over 15 Steele, and it's not a whole lot to write home about. But the fact that the shot numbers were up, numbers were up as well, slightly. Confidence is going up. And I know it's like, okay, he had 31 points a year before, and he's a first overall pick, and now he's up to 39 points. Like, let's not get too excited. I think it's more so what I've seen from his ability to actually affect games with his physicality and with his overall quality on the ice. Yes, okay, it hasn't maybe translated into offensive success, perhaps, but I think it's coming, Steele. And he's also just been a victim of a very good balanced forward group that you've talked about very nicely just there. To me, this guy brings a whole lot of value, especially in banger leagues. Because of his physicality. I'm so agreeing with you on he needs to get the run out more. I'm just a little worried if Chris Kreider does go on a heater or continues to have the success he's had over the last couple of years, and I'm not saying he's going to run it back from 2 years ago and pop 50 or more. Even if he's hovering around 25, 30, 35 goals, which I think we can both agree Chris Kreider can still do, it is going to be hard for Lafreniere to climb in there and get those minutes. So I think what I need to see from him is a really hot start. I need to see him seize the moment. And, you and I have loved that third line. I think it was Capo Caco for a while, Hedl and him. I think they're going to break that up a little bit more. They might give Capo a little bit of a look more up the lineup. I just need to see this man seize his opportunity so that we can look at him as a really legitimate fantasy piece, which I think both you and I think he can do. He's just got to get it together a little bit, I think, between the ears, Steele. Mentally, I think not having that run out and not having the ice time and leash that he had in junior has really rattled him. But maybe now, excuse me before I choke, I think he's going to have that confidence to do his thing. Let's watch what happens, because the New York Rangers are going to be a force to be reckoned with. We know that. So drafting players on that team, even if it's a reduced role and he's like a filler for you, like a backup, if depending on the format, he's your roster guy. I'm loving that kind of addition, because to me, Lafreniere brings a whole lot of value still.
He does. And like you said, especially for banger leagues, because the hits are up, the shots are up a little bit. Every single year, he's gotten better. He went from 21 to 31 to 39 points.
Fact.
All the stats are heading in the right direction, just at a very, very slow pace. And again, I'm very excited to see what Peter Laviolette does with the head coaching job of the New York Rangers. A little bit of a mix-up. It up a little bit. A little bit of a mix-up, but you're right. Caco's up there on the first line, it seems like, with Chris Kreider and Mika Zibanejad. So, that we could see a little bit of the kid line. We could see a little bit of a mix-up. But I would love to see Alexis Lafreniere get some more power play time, get him some more average ice time, maybe even 16 and a half minutes this next year. He was one of those guys that I would go back to on the waiver wire targets every Monday if the New York Rangers had a strong week, 4-game week. So something to keep an eye out for as well. But most likely, Alexis Lafreniere will be getting drafted in the later stages of your fantasy hockey draft. We got one last player to talk about. Evan Bouchard signs his deal with the Edmonton Oilers. He's staying in Canada for the foreseeable future, the next 2 seasons. That's your boy, and I want your opinion on him right after this.
NFL Sunday Ticket is now on YouTube and YouTube TV, which means that it just got easier to be an NFL fan, even if you live far away. Like maybe you like the Bears, but you're hibernating in Panthers territory. But with NFL Sunday Ticket, your out-of-market team is never more than a short distance away. Specifically, the distance from you to your remote control. NFL Sunday Ticket, now on YouTube and YouTube TV. Go to youtube.com/presale to get $50 off.
Terms and embargoes apply. Offer ends 9/19. No refund. Subscription auto renews.
There's no off-season for the true NHL fan, and there are no off days for Locked On NHL. This off-season, Locked On NHL has you taken care of. In just 30 minutes every day, Locked On NHL will give you the latest on all the fireworks of the NHL offseason. Locked On NHL, free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
But thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Remember to continue following us. Hit the subscribe button. We appreciate all that love and support you show us every single day. Continue to DM us on Twitter. LO_fantasy NHL is where you can send us your information, full name, email, which league you want to be a part of, the competitive or the casual league. Again, the difference is just the entry fee of that league. But we're already up to 22 participants, including Flip and I. So continue to DM us. Make sure you get your spot. I believe we are solidifying 14 or 16 spots at the most for each league. So we'll get up to 32 or 34 players in overall for both leagues. But yeah, continue to DM us. Evan Bouchard, your boy, though. How do you feel about this contract, him remaining in Edmonton for the next two seasons?
It's one of those little bridge deals, I think, Steele. It makes sense to me. It was just essential for this team, in my opinion.
It was.
Because they bring in Matthias Ekholm at the deadline. And rarely, I think, do you see a player that's not maybe like a headline name come in and have such an impact on the difference of an entire club. And I know he has nothing to do with what's going on with the amazing offensive talent up front. But it actually does when those guys don't need to worry as much about what's happening on the back end. And I think I spoke to you about that, about the same effect of Stuart Skinner. They haven't had a number one goalie there for a long time. And I know he's still young in his career. Throwing out the number one title is a little bit loose right now. He is the number one. And Matthias Ekholm makes the difference. Now, Evan Bouchard, with the moving out of Tyson Barrie, was allowed to step out. And I don't think enough people realize that historically good power play in Edmonton is going to continue to roll next season. And Evan Bouchard is going to be a big part of it. And he's going to benefit and also steal. In 82 games last year, 156 shots on net. But how about the peripherals? This is what I didn't even realize about the man before digging into it for today. 77 blocks, 95 hits. He can do a little bit of everything, and actually he plays with a little bit of edge. So Evan Bouchard is a must-draft player for me. If you can get a hold of him, I don't think he should slide much past the 7th or 8th round, in my opinion. That's how high I am on him. That might be a little high given the format, but if you look at how good that team is offensively, and he's going to be the number one D-man on the power play of the best power play unit in the game, I don't want to miss out on a chance to have Evan Bouchard on my team. And he's my boy for a reason, Steele. He's going to get his points this year, and I guarantee you're going to be upset. And I don't mean you. I mean as a GM out there, if you overlooked on him, my man's got 60 points in his eyesight, and he can get there. No problem, in my opinion.
That's where I think a lot of his value rises, is the lack of power play points he's had the last two seasons. Now that he'll be that number one guy. He only had 13 power play points last year. We could easily see him get up to 25 power play points with how strong it is with McDavid and Draisaitl and Zach Hyman, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, maybe even more with him being that number one guy now on the power play quarterbacking. To me, I think it's a very smart deal for both Evan Bouchard as well as the Edmonton Oilers. 2 years, $3.9 million. I think he's setting himself up for a big payday in 2025. Again, just see his overall stats continue to rise over the next two seasons. A little bit surprised that no one offer sheeted this kid. He seemed like the atypical offer sheet for this off season. So very surprised about that. But the Edmonton Oilers
going around as well.
Yeah, the Edmonton Oilers are very thankful that they were able to get this contract negotiations done and over with.
And when you look at this blue line, Steele, yeah, okay, a couple of years ago, right, we were ready to poke holes all over the defensive ability of the Edmonton Oilers. Darnell Nurse, say what you will about Darnell Nurse, he is really valuable fantasy-wise because he can chip in offensively, and he brings the body, and he is a nasty customer on that back end. And now he doesn't have to worry about being that number one physical veteran defensive presence. Matthias Ekholm is there to take that gig. Now he can maybe play a little bit more of his game. Now you got Evan Bouchard developing. It all comes down to me for the success of this team. Can Stuart Skinner run it back as a legitimate number one? He stepped out and proved that maybe he has it, but that's a small sample size, and 1 year isn't good enough for me to ready to just put a number 1 starter title on this guy. Apologies if the Wi-Fi is going in and out a little bit, people. This is a sketchy Northern Cottage recording, but I'll leave it at this for you, Steele. Evan Bouchard, for me, must-draft player. The situation is good. Now the contract's in tow. You should be taking a real good look at my boy, who was also, hold on, I believe he was a 10th overall pick. Wow, I'm good. 10th overall draft pick, so you know the caliber is also there. He's going to be bringing a good Ontario boy as well, Oakville native.
Look, the other day we were talking about some of those gold mines that you could pick from fantasy teams. The Edmonton Oilers is probably number one on that list just because of McDavid and Draisaitl, but everyone that's situated around them, even on the blue line and in the crease, they're draftable players at the most. So again, Edmonton Oilers are going to have a very strong year, especially led by McDavid and Draisaitl, the two best players in the NHL right now. We will continue this conversation next Monday. Make sure you're tuning in. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen. Again, make sure you're tuning in throughout the week, Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, when you can find our episodes for the month of August. And then September comes around, back to 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, 7 o'clock in the morning. We are back, baby. Thank you again so much for tuning in for today's episode with Flip and I. Have a great day. Have a great weekend. Good luck with all your summer bets out there. And we shall see you back here again on Monday.
Go Leafs, go.
Hey, Prime members, you can listen to this Locked On podcast ad-free on Amazon Music. Download the Amazon Music app today.